Jake stood and walked to the chamber's great window, looking out at the restored Earth and the transformed galaxy beyond. They had achieved something that no species in galactic history had managed: absolute victory over their enemies and absolute security for their people. But as he watched human children playing in gardens that grew according to their whims, as he observed alien delegations arriving to pay homage to their human overlords, as he felt the pulse of cosmic power that flowed through every awakened consciousness, Jake wondered if they had won too completely. Humanity had tried peace and been met with war. They had offered friendship and received indifference. They had begged for mercy and been shown cruelty. In response, they had become something magnificent and terrible. Beings of infinite. The cold metal floors of Titan Base echoed with the sound of hurried footsteps. Jake Morrison wiped sweat from his forehead as he stared at the massive blueprints spread across the holographic display. The engineering bay buzzed with activity as dozens of scientists and technicians worked around the clock on humanity's most secret project. "The quantum fusion core is stable," Dr. Lisa Carter called out from across the room. Her voice carried a mix of excitement and exhaustion. She had been working for 18 hours straight, pushing the limits of human understanding of physics. "We're getting energy outputs that shouldn't be possible." Jake nodded and walked over to her workstation. The numbers on her screen made his heart race. If these calculations were correct, they had just solved humanity's biggest problem. For years, human ships had been outgunned and outmatched by alien technology. The Zephyrian Empire treated humans like annoying insects, swatting down their ships with ease. "Are you sure about this?" Jake asked, pointing at the energy readings. "These numbers are 10 times higher than anything we've ever achieved." Lisa looked up at him with tired but determined eyes. "I've run the tests 50 times. The quantum fusion reaction creates a cascade effect that amplifies itself. It's like the atoms want to give us more power than we're asking for." Admiral Ben Rodriguez entered the engineering bay, his military uniform crisp despite the late hour. The other workers immediately stood straighter when they saw him. Rodriguez had been the driving force behind Project Genesis from the beginning. When the Zephyrians destroyed New Boston Colony, killing 40,000 civilians, he had convinced Earth's government to fund this desperate gamble. "How are we looking, people?" Rodriguez asked, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent 30 years in space combat. Jake stepped forward. "Sir, Dr. Carter has achieved a breakthrough. We're looking at energy outputs that could power weapons beyond anything the galaxy has ever seen." Rodriguez's eyes lit up. "Show me." Lisa activated her holographic display, showing a three-dimensional model of the quantum fusion reaction. Streams of energy spiraled around each other in patterns that seemed almost alive. "The reaction doesn't just produce energy," she explained. "It produces energy that can be shaped and directed in ways that violate what we thought were physical laws." "What does that mean for our ship?" Rodriguez asked. Jake pulled up another set of blueprints. The design showed a vessel unlike anything humanity had ever built. It was massive, stretching 2 kilometers from bow to stern, covered in weapons. That looked more like works of art than instruments of war. "We're calling it the USS Leviathan. It will carry weapons that can punch through any known shield technology, armor that learns from each attack and becomes stronger, and a main weapon that—" Jake paused, unsure how to explain what they had. "Discovered. Go on," Rodriguez urged. "A weapon that can alter reality itself," Lisa said quietly. "We're calling it the reality cannon. It doesn't just destroy matter. It removes it from existence entirely." The room fell silent. Even the constant humming of the station's life support systems seemed muted. Rodriguez stared at the blueprints, for a long moment, understanding the implications of what he was seeing. "How long until we can begin construction?" he asked finally. "If we start immediately and use the hidden shipyards in the Kuiper Belt, we could have her ready in 8 months, Jake replied. "But sir, we're talking about technology that we barely understand. The risks of not building her are greater," Rodriguez cut him off. "The Zephyrians are planning another offensive. Our intelligence suggests they want to wipe out humanity entirely. They see us as a threat to their empire's expansion." Lisa saved her data and turned to face the Admiral. "Sir, I need to be clear about something. The reality cannon works by manipulating the fabric of space and time. Every time we fire it, we're essentially tearing a hole in reality and patching it back up. We don't know what the long-term effects might be." Rodriguez nodded grimly. "Noted, Doctor. But right now, long-term effects are a luxury we can't afford. If we don't stop the Zephyrians, there won't be a long term for humanity." Jake looked around the room at his fellow scientists and engineers. He saw fear in their eyes, but also determination. They all knew what was at stake. Earth's colonies were scattered across dozens of star systems, all vulnerable to alien attack. Traditional human weapons were like throwing rocks at tanks when facing Zephyrian plasma technology. "We'll need the best crew in human space," Rodriguez continued. "I'm thinking of Captain Alex Turner for command. He's young, but he's proven himself against impossible odds before." Jake knew Turner's reputation. The man had saved 3 colonies from pirate attacks using nothing but outdated ships and brilliant tactics. If anyone could handle a vessel as powerful as the Leviathan, it would be him. "What about the Galactic Council?" Lisa asked. "If they find out what we're building—" "Let me worry about politics," Rodriguez replied. "Your job is to make sure this ship works. Humanity's survival depends on it." Over the next few days, work on Project Genesis intensified. Teams of engineers began fabricating components using methods that pushed human manufacturing to its limits. The quantum fusion cores required precision measured in individual atoms. The reality cannon's focusing crystals had to be grown in zero-gravity environments with perfect temperature control. Jake found himself working 20-hour days, surviving on stimulants and determination. Every component had to be perfect. A single flaw could destroy not just the ship, but potentially the entire solar system where it was tested. Lisa spent her time refining the theoretical framework that made their weapons possible. She discovered that human brains seemed uniquely suited to understanding quantum mechanics in ways that alien minds could not. It was as if humanity's chaotic nature was actually an advantage when dealing with the fundamental chaos of quantum physics. As construction began in the secret shipyards beyond Pluto, word of the project leaked to other human colonies. Some called it humanity's salvation. Others worried that they were creating something too dangerous to control. Rodriguez ignored the criticism and pushed forward. He had seen the intelligence reports about Zephyrian fleet movements. Time was running out. In 6 months, maybe less, the aliens would launch their final assault on human space. The USS Leviathan had to be ready. It was humanity's only hope for survival in a galaxy that wanted them extinct. The Kuiper Belt shipyards floated in the darkness beyond Pluto, hidden among the ice and rock that marked the edge of human space. Sam Blake watched through the observation deck as the USS Leviathan slowly took shape. The massive vessel dwarfed everything around it, its hull gleaming with an unusual metallic sheen that seemed to shift colors in the artificial light. "Hull Section 47 is in place," announced one of the construction supervisors over the communication system. Sam nodded and made a note on his tablet. Every piece of the ship had to be assembled with perfect precision. The metamaterials used in the hull could change their density and structure on command, but only if they were installed correctly. Dr. Lisa Carter joined Sam at the observation window, her face reflecting both wonder and worry. "It's beautiful," she said quietly, "and terrifying." Sam understood her feelings. The Leviathan was unlike anything humanity had ever built. Its hull curved in ways that seemed to defy geometry, covered with weapon systems that looked more like sculptures than instruments of war. The ship's main cannon ran along its entire length, a massive tube that could focus the reality cannon's power with deadly precision. "How are the quantum fusion cores performing?" Sam asked. "Better than expected," Lisa replied. "The energy output is stable, and we're seeing efficiency rates of 98%. The ship will have enough power to run every system at maximum capacity for months without refueling." Captain Alex Turner appeared beside them, still adjusting to his new uniform. At 35, he was young for a ship captain, but his record spoke for itself. He had saved more human lives than any other officer in the fleet, often against impossible odds. "Status report," Turner said, his voice calm but focused. Sam consulted his tablet. "Hull assembly is 80% complete. Weapon systems are being installed now. The reality cannon should be operational within 2 weeks." Turner nodded and studied the ship taking shape before them. He had spent weeks reviewing the technical specifications, trying to understand exactly what kind of vessel he would be commanding. The Leviathan was more than a warship. It was a statement that humanity refused to be pushed around any longer. "What? About the crew?" Turner asked. 500 of the best people we could find," Admiral Rodriguez said as he joined the group. "Scientists, engineers, tactical specialists, and Marines. Everyone volunteered when they learned about the mission." Turner appreciated that fact. The crew knew they were signing up for something dangerous and unprecedented. Commander Kate Phillips would serve as his first officer, bringing 15 years of combat experience to the bridge. The weapons department would be led by Chief Ryan Cooper, a man who understood energy weapons better than anyone in human space. "Sir, we have a problem," called Chief Engineer Morrison from across the observation deck. He was pointing at a communication display that showed an incoming message from Earth. Rodriguez activated the display, and the stern face of President Williams appeared on the screen. Her expression was grim as she began to speak. "Admiral Rodriguez, we have received formal complaints from the Galactic Council regarding your construction project. The Zephyrian ambassador claims you are building a weapon of mass destruction that violates galactic law." Rodriguez's jaw tightened. "Madam President, the Zephyrians have killed over 200,000 human civilians in the past year. We need this ship." "I understand the military necessity," Williams replied, "but the political situation is deteriorating rapidly. The Crystalline Collective and the Biomechanical Swarm are both demanding that we surrender the vessel immediately. They're threatening to impose sanctions on all human colonies." Turner stepped forward. "Madam President, with respect, we can't let alien threats dictate our defense policies. The Leviathan represents our only chance to level the playing field." Williams studied Turner's face through the communication link. "Captain, I hope you understand what you're getting into. This ship is going to make humanity a target for every major power in the galaxy." "We're already a target," Turner replied simply. "At least now we'll be able to fight back." After the communication ended, the group stood in uncomfortable silence. They all knew that completing the Leviathan would change everything. Humanity would no longer be seen as a minor species struggling to survive. They would be viewed as a potential threat to the established galactic order. Sam returned his attention to the construction process. The reality cannon was the most complex component, requiring exotic materials that had to be manufactured in specially designed facilities. The focusing crystals alone had taken 3 months to grow, each one requiring perfect atomic alignment. "Are we sure this weapon will work as designed?" Turner asked Lisa. She hesitated before answering. "The theoretical models are solid. In laboratory tests, we can erase small amounts of matter completely, but scaling it up to ship killer levels, we won't know for certain until we test it." "And the risks?" "Every time we fire the reality cannon, we're manipulating space-time itself. Think of it like punching holes in a piece of fabric and then patching them up. Eventually, the fabric might weaken." Turner absorbed this information without changing his expression. He had commanded ships in desperate situations before, but never one carrying a weapon that could potentially damage reality itself. Construction continued around the clock. Teams of workers installed the adaptive armor systems that would allow the ship to learn from enemy attacks and modify its defenses accordingly. The AI core, designated Atlas, was integrated into every system of the ship, creating an artificial intelligence more advanced than anything previously built. As the weeks passed, the Leviathan began to look less like a construction project and more like a living weapon. Its hull seemed to pulse with internal energy, and the weapons arrays moved with fluid grace as they tracked imaginary targets. The day finally came when the last components were installed. Sam stood on the bridge of the completed vessel, surrounded by control stations that hummed with barely contained power. The ship felt alive around him, responding to the crew's commands with eager precision. "All systems green," reported Chief Morrison from the engineering station. "Quantum fusion cores are stable. Weapon systems are armed and ready." Turner took his place in the captain's chair and looked around at his crew. These 500 people were about to become part of something unprecedented in human history. They were the crew of a ship that could challenge the greatest powers in the galaxy. "Take us out of dock," Turner ordered. The Leviathan moved away from the construction facility with surprising grace for such a massive vessel. Its engines produced no visible exhaust, instead bending space around the ship to achieve faster-than-light travel without the typical energy signature of human vessels. As they cleared the shipyard, Turner received a priority message from Admiral Rodriguez. The Zephyrians had just launched their largest offensive ever, targeting the human colony of New Denver. 200 alien warships were approaching the planet, intent on wiping out every human settlement. Turner smiled grimly. The Leviathan's first mission would be a trial by fire. It was time to show the galaxy what humanity could accomplish when pushed to the edge of extinction. The Great Assembly Hall on Nexus Prime had never seen such a gathering. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy filled the massive chamber, their voices creating a chorus of fear and anger that echoed off the crystal walls. Ambassador Helen Brooks sat alone at the human delegation table, surrounded by hundreds of alien beings who viewed her species as a threat to galactic civilization. The ethereal Confederation's speaker floated above the central platform, its translucent form pulsing with agitated energy. When it spoke, its voice resonated through psychic channels that made every being in the chamber feel its words directly in their minds. The humans have violated every principle that has maintained galactic peace for 10,000 years, the ethereal declared. Their weapon does not merely destroy matter, it removes it from the fabric of reality itself. Such power threatens the very foundation of existence. Helen stood slowly, her human height making her appear small among the towering alien delegates. She had been a diplomat for 20 years, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. The recordings from the Battle of New Denver had spread across the galaxy within hours, showing the USS Leviathan erasing entire Zephyrian warships from existence. "Honored delegates," Helen began, her voice carrying clearly through the chambers. Translation systems. Humanity did not seek this conflict. For months, the Zephyrian Empire has systematically murdered our civilians and destroyed our colonies. We had the right to defend ourselves. A thunderous roar erupted from the Talon Republic section of the assembly. General Crix, a massive reptilian warrior covered in ceremonial scars, slammed his clawed fist against the speaking platform. "Defense!" Crix snarled, his voice filled with rage. "You erased 50 ships from existence. Their crews did not die. They simply ceased to be. No warrior's code in the galaxy permits such abomination." Helen had expected this reaction. The Talon. Republic valued honor in combat above all else, viewing the reality cannon as a coward's weapon that denied enemies the chance to die fighting. But she also knew that the Talons feared humanity's sudden rise to power, threatening their position as the galaxy's premier military force. "General Crix," Helen replied calmly, "your people have destroyed entire planets when it served your interests. The Crystalline Collective has enslaved billions of beings across the Outer Rim. The biomechanical swarm has consumed 3 entire star systems. Yet you speak of honor and restraint when humanity finally develops the ability to protect itself." The chamber erupted in angry voices as delegates from different species shouted at each other. The ancient ethereal speaker projected waves of calm across the assembly, slowly restoring order to the chaotic scene. "The human ambassador misses the fundamental point," interjected Dr. Velix of the Scientific Coalition, her 4 arms gesturing emphatically. "The weapon they have created destabilizes space-time itself. Our physicists have analyzed the sensor data from New Denver. Each use of this reality cannon creates microscopic tears in the dimensional barriers that separate our universe from other places." Helen felt a chill run down her spine. Dr. Carter had mentioned similar concerns, but the full implications were only now becoming clear. "Dr. Velix, are you suggesting that our weapon poses a threat beyond its immediate military applications?" "I am stating it as fact," Velix replied grimly. "The barriers between dimensions are not infinite in strength. If they are weakened sufficiently, entities from other realities could break through into our universe. Entities that view entire galaxies as prey." The chamber fell silent as the weight of this revelation settled over the assembled delegates. Helen realized that she was no longer dealing with simple political opposition to humanity's rise in power. The aliens genuinely believed that the Leviathan threatened all life in the galaxy. The Crystalline Collective's representative, a being of living mineral that spoke through harmonic vibrations, added its voice to the discussion. "Our collective memory spans millions of years. We have records of what happens when reality-altering weapons are used extensively. Entire regions of space become uninhabitable. Stars die. Planets are consumed by entities that should not exist in our dimension." Helen activated her communication device and requested an urgent conference with Earth's leadership. Within minutes, President Williams appeared on a holographic display, flanked by Admiral Rodriguez and the Human Military Council. "Madam President," Helen said quietly, The situation here is more serious than we anticipated. The aliens claim our weapon threatens the entire galaxy, not just their military forces. Rodriguez leaned forward, his expression skeptical. Ambassador, this could be propaganda designed to make us surrender our only advantage. The Zephyrians have been planning to wipe out humanity. We can't let alien fear tactics disarm us. Admiral, Helen replied, Dr. Valix is one of the galaxy's most respected physicists. Her people have no military interest in this conflict. If she says the reality cannon is dangerous. President Williams studied the faces of the alien delegates visible through the communication link. What are they proposing? The ethereal speaker answered directly, its psychic voice reaching through the communication channel. Complete dismantling of the vessel you call Leviathan. In exchange, humanity will be granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with all the protections and benefits that status provides. The Zephyrian Empire will be forbidden from attacking human colonies. Helen translated the offer for her human colleagues, watching their reactions carefully. The deal would give humanity everything they had wanted for decades. Acceptance as equals in galactic civilization and protection from alien aggression. But it would also leave them defenseless if the aliens changed their minds. What guarantees do we have? Williams asked. How do we know this isn't a trap to eliminate our defenses before you finish what the Zephyrians started? General Crix stepped forward, his massive form imposing even through the holographic display. Human leader, despite our differences, the Talon Republic honors its agreements. If you accept council membership, we will personally guarantee your species protection. Any attack on human worlds will be met with the full force of our battle fleets. Rodriguez shook his head firmly. Madam President, I strongly advise against this course of action. The moment we disarm, we become dependent on alien goodwill for our survival. History shows that such arrangements rarely last. The debate continued for hours as human leadership weighed their options. Helen found herself caught between two impossible positions: accept the aliens' demands and trust their promises of protection, or refuse and face the combined might of the entire galaxy. As the discussion dragged on, more evidence arrived supporting the aliens' claims about dimensional instability. Long-range sensors detected strange energy fluctuations in the space around New Denver, areas where the laws of physics seem to operate differently than normal. Dr. Carter appeared on the communication link, her face haggard with exhaustion and worry. Madam President, I've been analyzing the data from our weapon tests. The aliens are right about the dimensional damage. Each time we fire the reality cannon, we're weakening the barriers that keep our universe stable. How serious is the threat? Williams asked. If we continue using the weapon at current levels, we could see major dimensional breaches within months. Things from other realities would begin entering our universe. Based on the theoretical models, these entities treat matter and energy as food sources. They could consume entire star systems. The human leadership fell silent as they absorbed this information. Admiral Rodriguez looked like a man who had just seen his life's work turn to ash. The weapon that was supposed to save humanity might instead doom the entire galaxy. Helen looked around the assembly hall at the hundreds of alien faces watching her. Despite their differences, despite centuries of conflict and mistrust, they were all united by one thing: the desire to survive. The reality cannon threatened that survival in ways that transcended politics and territorial disputes. Madam President, Helen said finally, I believe we need to consider the Council's offer seriously. If our weapon truly threatens galactic stability, we may have a moral obligation to disarm. Rodriguez's face darkened. Ambassador, you're talking about surrendering humanity's only advantage based on alien theories. We have no way to verify their claims independently. We have Dr. Carter's analysis, Williams pointed out. She's confirming what the aliens are telling us. The debate continued as the galaxy watched and waited. On the bridge of the USS Leviathan, Captain Turner received regular updates on the diplomatic proceedings. His crew looked to him for guidance, but even he was unsure what the right course of action might be. The most powerful weapon humanity had ever created was also potentially the most dangerous. Turner stared out at the stars and wondered if his species was mature enough to wield such devastating power responsibly. The galaxy was offering humanity a choice: join galactic civilization as equals, or remain isolated with a weapon that could destroy everything they sought to protect. It was a decision that would determine the fate of both humanity and every other species in the galaxy. The emergency session of the Galactic Council lasted 18 hours before reaching its inevitable conclusion. When Ambassador Helen Brooks transmitted the final decision to the USS Leviathan, Captain Alex Turner felt the weight of the entire galaxy settling on his shoulders. "Captain," Brooks said, her voice heavy with exhaustion and regret, "the Council has declared the Leviathan a clear and present danger to all sentient life. They're authorizing its destruction by any means necessary." "I'm sorry, Alex. We tried every diplomatic option." Turner stood on his bridge, surrounded by his crew of 500 dedicated people who had volunteered for what they thought would be humanity's salvation. Now they were branded as criminals and outcasts, hunted by the very species they had sought to protect themselves from. "What about Earth's response?" Commander Kate Phillips asked from her station beside the captain's chair. "President Williams has officially ordered us to surrender the ship to Council forces," Brooks replied. "Admiral Rodriguez has been relieved of command pending an investigation. The government is trying to distance itself from Project Genesis." Turner closed the communication channel and looked around his bridge. Chief Ryan Cooper sat at the weapons station, his hands hovering over controls that could erase entire fleets from existence. Chief Morrison monitored the engineering systems that powered technology beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. These people had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity, and now their own government was abandoning them. "Orders, sir?" Phillips asked quietly. Turner made his decision with the certainty that had carried him through years of impossible battles. "Set course for the void sector. If the galaxy wants to hunt us, we'll make them work for it." The void sector lay on the edge of known space, a region of dying stars and shattered worlds that most species avoided. It was the perfect place for a ship like the Leviathan to disappear while Turner figured out their next move. As the massive vessel jumped to faster-than-light travel, leaving the diplomatic station behind, the largest manhunt in galactic history began to mobilize. The Crystalline Collective provided their most advanced sensor networks. The Talon Republic contributed their fastest attack ships. Even the normally peaceful Ethereal Confederation offered their psychic tracking abilities to locate the rogue human vessel. The biomechanical swarm, a species that communicated through shared consciousness, declared that every ship in their massive fleet would join the hunt. They viewed the Leviathan's reality cannon as an existential threat to their collective mind, capable of erasing not just their ships, but their shared memories and experiences. Within hours of the Council's declaration, over 2,000 ships from 12 different species were converging on the last known position of the USS Leviathan. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history, united by fear of a single human vessel. Turner watched the tactical displays as his ship moved through the empty space between star systems. Lieutenant Grace Nelson monitored the long-range sensors, tracking the alien fleets that were slowly closing in on their position. "Sir, we're picking up faster-than-light signatures from multiple directions," Nelson reported. "Estimated enemy strength is significant." Dr. Lisa Carter emerged from the science laboratory where she had been studying the effects of their previous reality cannon usage. Her face was pale, and Turner could see the weight of responsibility wearing on the woman who had made their devastating weapon possible. "Captain, I've completed my analysis of the dimensional damage from New Denver," she said quietly. "The aliens are right. We're creating tears in space-time that aren't healing properly. If we continue using the reality cannon—" "How long do we have?" Turner asked. "At current usage levels, maybe 6 months before we start seeing major dimensional breaches. Entities from other realities could begin entering our universe." Turner absorbed this information without changing his expression. He had commanded ships in desperate situations before, but never one where the very act of fighting might doom the galaxy. Yet he also knew that surrendering the Leviathan would leave humanity defenseless against future alien aggression. "Sir, incoming transmission from the human colony at Kepler Station," Communications Officer Dave Miller announced. The image of Colonial Administrator Paul Grant appeared on the main screen. Behind him, Turner could see the busy corridors of the civilian space station that served as a trade hub between human and alien territories. "Captain Turner," Grant said, his voice filled with anger and fear, "I'm ordering you to stay away from this system. The Galactic Council has threatened to impose sanctions on any human facility that aids your vessel. We can't risk the economic survival of 30,000 colonists for your crusade." Turner felt the sting of betrayal from his own species, but he understood Grant's position. The colonists were civilians who depended on trade with alien species for their survival. Harboring the Leviathan would make them targets for Council retaliation. "Understood, Administrator," Turner replied formally. "We'll maintain our distance from human territories." The communication ended, leaving the bridge in uncomfortable silence. Turner realized that his ship was now truly alone, cut off from both human and alien support. They were the most powerful vessel in the galaxy, and they had nowhere to go. "Captain," Chief Morrison called from the engineering station, "we're receiving a priority signal from the Deep Space Monitoring Station at Wolf 359. They're reporting multiple alien fleets converging on our projected course." Turner studied the tactical display as red indicators appeared across the star map. The alien forces were moving to encircle the void sector, creating a net that would be impossible to escape once it closed. "How long before they reach optimal intercept positions?" Turner asked. Nelson ran quick calculations on her tactical computer. "Approximately 14 hours, sir. After that, any course we take will lead us directly into enemy forces." Turner made his decision quickly. "Plot a course for the Shattered Stars Nebula. We'll use the interference from the stellar remnants to mask our signature while we figure out our next move." The Shattered Stars Nebula was the graveyard of an ancient supernova, filled with radioactive dust and electromagnetic interference that would disrupt most sensor systems. It was dangerous territory, but the Leviathan's advanced shielding could protect them from the worst effects. As the ship changed course, Turner received an encrypted message from Admiral Rodriguez. Despite being relieved of command, the old admiral had managed to send one final communication to his greatest achievement. "Alex," Rodriguez said, his voice tired but determined, "I want you to know that what you're doing is necessary. The politicians, are willing to surrender our only advantage because they're afraid of alien opinion. But I've seen the intelligence reports. The Zephyrians are regrouping for another offensive. If you give up the Leviathan, humanity will be defenseless again. Turner saved the message and shared it with his senior staff. It was comforting to know that at least some people in human leadership understood the stakes they were facing. The Leviathan entered the Shattered Stars Nebula 12 hours later, its hull shimmering as the adaptive armor adjusted to the intense radiation. The stellar debris provided excellent cover, but it also limited their sensor range and communication abilities. "Sir, we're detecting a ship on the edge of the nebula," Nelson reported suddenly. "Configuration matches a crystalline collective dreadnought." Turner studied the sensor reading with interest. The crystalline collective built their ships from living mineral formations that could reshape themselves for different combat roles. A dreadnought configuration meant they were expecting a serious fight. "They found us faster than expected," Phillips observed. "No," Turner said thoughtfully. "They're not hunting us. They're testing us. The Council wants to see what our ship can really do before they commit their main forces." The alien dreadnought began moving deeper into the nebula, its crystalline hull glowing with internal energy. Turner realized this would be the Leviathan's first real test against an enemy that knew what they were facing. "All hands, battle stations," Turner announced over the ship's communication system. "We're about to show the galaxy why they're right to fear us." The hunt for the USS Leviathan had begun in earnest, but Turner was determined to make the aliens pay a high price for their pursuit. The most powerful human warship ever built would not go quietly into the darkness. The crystalline collective dreadnought moved through the Shattered Stars Nebula like a living mountain of diamond and steel. Its hull shifted and reformed as it advanced, adapting to the intense radiation while maintaining perfect structural integrity. Captain Alex Turner watched the alien vessel approach on his tactical display, knowing that this encounter would determine how the galaxy viewed the USS Leviathan's true capabilities. "Range, 200 kilometers and closing, Lieutenant Grace," Nelson reported from her tactical station. "The dreadnought is charging its primary weapon systems." Turner studied the enemy ship with professional interest. Crystalline collective vessels were grown rather than built, their living mineral hulls capable of self-repair and adaptation. They were among the most durable ships in the galaxy, able to absorb tremendous damage and continue fighting. "Chief Cooper, what's your assessment of their weaponry?" Turner asked. Ryan Cooper consulted his tactical database before responding. "Sir, crystalline dreadnoughts typically mount focused beam arrays that can cut through most known armor types. Their primary weapon is a coherent energy lance that draws power directly from their ship's crystalline matrix." Turner nodded. The crystalline collective had perfected energy weapons over millions of years of evolution. Their ships could focus starlight itself into devastating beams that had destroyed entire fleets. Under normal circumstances, a single human vessel would have no chance against such an opponent. "Incoming transmission from the dreadnought. Communications," Officer Dave Miller announced. The main screen filled with the image of a crystalline being, its translucent form pulsing with internal light. When it spoke, its voice resonated like the ringing of crystal bells. "Human vessel, I am Resonance Prime of the collective ship Eternal Harmony. You will surrender your weapon systems and submit to council judgment. We offer you one opportunity to comply before we demonstrate the futility of resistance." Turner stood and faced the alien commander. "Resonance Prime, your council has branded us criminals for defending our people. We will not surrender to beings who would see humanity extinct for the crime of refusing to be victims." Your species has created a weapon that threatens all life in the galaxy, Resonance Prime replied, its form flaring brighter with agitation. The reality cannon cannot be allowed to exist. If you will not surrender it voluntarily, we will take it by force. The communication ended, and immediately the dreadnought opened fire. Beams of coherent energy lanced through space, striking the Leviathan's adaptive armor with tremendous force. The metamaterial hull analyzed each impact, learning the frequency and composition of the alien weapons. Armor adaptation in progress, Chief Morrison reported from engineering. Estimated completion in 30 seconds. Turner watched his ship's defensive systems work with quiet satisfaction. Within moments, the Leviathan's hull had restructured itself to deflect the crystalline weapons harmlessly into space. What had been devastating energy beams became nothing more than light shows against the human ship's adaptive defenses. Return. Fire, Turner ordered. Quantum torpedoes, full spread. The Leviathan's secondary weapons launched a barrage of torpedoes that phased through normal space, bypassing the dreadnought's energy shields entirely. The weapons materialized inside the alien ship's hull and detonated, tearing massive holes in the crystalline structure. But the collective vessel began repairing itself almost immediately. Its living hull flowed like liquid crystal, sealing the damage and adapting to resist the quantum torpedoes' phasing technology. Within minutes, the dreadnought was fully functional again. Impressive, Turner admitted. They're adapting to our weapons as quickly as we adapted to theirs. Commander Kate Phillips leaned closer to Turner's chair. Sir, this could go on indefinitely. Neither ship can significantly damage the other with conventional weapons. Turner had reached the same conclusion. The battle was becoming a stalemate between two vessels equipped with adaptive technology. Only one weapon in his arsenal could break the deadlock, but using it would send a message to the entire galaxy about humanity's willingness to escalate. Chief Cooper, Turner said quietly. Prepare the reality cannon. Cooper's hands hesitated over his controls. Sir, are you sure? Dr. Carter's warnings about dimensional damage. I'm aware of the risks, Turner replied. But we need to show the galaxy that hunting us carries a price they might not be willing to pay. The Leviathan's main weapon began charging, drawing power from the quantum fusion cores and focusing it through exotic crystals. Space around the ship's bow began to distort as the reality cannon prepared to tear a hole in the fabric of existence itself. Weapon charged and ready, Cooper reported. Turner took a deep breath. He was about to cross a line that would change how the galaxy viewed both humanity and the Leviathan. Fire! The reality cannon released its devastating power in a beam that existed outside normal space-time. It struck the crystalline dreadnought's central core and simply erased a massive section of the ship from existence. Not destroyed, not vaporized, but removed from reality entirely. The alien vessel's remaining sections drifted apart, its crystalline matrix unable to repair damage that had never technically occurred. Resonance Prime's final transmission was a harmonic scream of confusion and terror as its ship ceased to exist around it. Target destroyed, Cooper reported, his voice hollow. Turner stared at the empty space where the dreadnought had been. The most advanced defensive technology in the galaxy had been meaningless against a weapon that simply denied the existence of whatever it struck. He felt no satisfaction in the victory, only a growing awareness of the terrible power at his command. Sir, Dr. Lisa Carter called from the science station, her voice filled with alarm. I'm detecting massive space-time distortions in the area where we fired. The dimensional fabric is fluctuating. Turner moved to her station and studied the sensor readings. Where the reality cannon had struck, space itself seemed unstable. Reality was bending and twisting in ways that violated every known law of physics. "How bad is it?" Turner asked. "The damage is spreading," Carter replied, her face pale with worry. "The dimensional tiers are expanding, creating a zone where normal physics don't apply. If this continues, we could have a permanent rift in space-time." Before Turner could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Nelson's voice cut through the noise from her tactical station. "Sir, massive faster-than-light signatures detected. Multiple fleets dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the nebula." Turner returned to his command chair and watched as his tactical display filled with red indicators. Over 500 ships from 8 different species had arrived, simultaneously forming a vast perimeter around the shattered star's nebula. "They were waiting for us to reveal our position," Phillips observed grimly. Turner realized that the dreadnought had been bait, designed to force the Leviathan to use its most devastating weapon while the alien fleets watched and recorded. Now, they had confirmed their worst fears about the reality cannon's effects on local space-time. "Incoming transmission on all frequencies," Miller announced. The main screen filled with the image of General Crix of the Talon Republic, his scarred face twisted with rage and determination. Behind him, Turner could see the command bridges of "ships from every major species in the galaxy, human captain," Crix growled. "You have just demonstrated why your weapon cannot be allowed to exist. You have created a dead zone in space where reality itself is breaking down. We will not permit you to flee and spread this corruption throughout the galaxy." Turner looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. 500 people who had volunteered to serve aboard humanity's most advanced warship, now trapped in the middle of the largest fleet engagement in galactic history. "All ships, prepare for combined assault," Crix continued. "We will destroy this abomination, even if it costs us half our fleet. The galaxy's survival depends on it." Turner closed the communication channel and stood to address his crew. "All hands. This is the captain. We are facing impossible odds against an enemy that believes our very existence threatens their survival. We have 2 choices. Surrender and allow them to dismantle the only weapon that can protect humanity, or fight and prove that humans do not go quietly into the darkness." The bridge crew looked to their captain with determination burning in their eyes. They had signed up to serve aboard a vessel that could challenge the greatest powers in the galaxy. Now they would discover whether human courage could overcome overwhelming odds. "All stations report ready for combat," Chief Morrison announced. Turner settled into his command chair and studied the massive alien fleet surrounding them. 500 ships against 1, with the fate of humanity hanging in the balance. "Take us in," he ordered. "Let's show them what humans can do when cornered." The USS Leviathan moved toward the enemy fleet, its hull shimmering with barely contained power. Behind them, the space-time distortions from their previous battle continued to spread, creating a reminder of the terrible price that came with wielding ultimate power. The USS Leviathan had been running for 3 weeks through the abandoned sectors at the galaxy's edge, pursued by the largest fleet in recorded history. Captain Alex Turner stood in what had once been the ship's stellar cartography lab, now converted into a refugee center for the survivors they had picked up from a derelict freighter. The rescued civilians looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and fear. They had heard the stories about the human ship that could erase matter from existence, and they weren't sure whether their rescuers were saviors or monsters. "Captain, Commander Kate Phillips called from the doorway. "We're approaching the coordinates." Dr. Carter identified. "The predecessor site should be just ahead." Turner nodded and made his way back to the bridge, leaving the civilians in the care of Dr. Amy Foster, the ship's chief medical officer. Foster had been treating not just physical injuries, but also the psychological trauma that came from living aboard a vessel hunted by the entire galaxy. The bridge crew looked exhausted despite the ship's advanced life support systems. 3 weeks of constant vigilance had worn them down, and Turner could see doubt creeping into their eyes. Half his original crew had begun questioning whether their mission was worth the cost to galactic stability. "Sir, we're detecting artificial structures ahead," Lieutenant Grace Nelson reported from her tactical station. "Configuration unknown, but they're definitely not natural formations." The main screen showed a vast complex of geometric shapes floating in the darkness between dead stars. The structures were made from materials that seemed to bend light around them, creating an optical illusion that hurt to look at directly. "Predecessor technology," Dr. Lisa Carter said with awe as she studied the sensor readings. "These installations are millions of years old, but they're still active. The power signatures are incredible." Turner had hoped that studying predecessor ruins might provide insight into the reality canon's long-term effects. The ancient aliens had vanished mysteriously, leaving behind only scattered installations that defied modern understanding. "Take us in slowly," Turner ordered. "Full shields and weapons ready. We don't know what kind of automated defenses they might have left behind." The Leviathan approached the predecessor complex with careful precision. As they drew closer, the alien structures began to respond to their presence. Lights flickered along geometric patterns that followed no recognizable logic, and energy fields formed around the installations. "Sir, we're being scanned," Chief Morrison reported from engineering. "The scan is thorough. It's analyzing our ship down to the quantum level." Suddenly, the main screen filled with images and data streams that made no immediate sense. Ancient text scrolled past in languages that predated known galactic civilization, accompanied by three-dimensional models that showed the structure of space-time itself. Carter worked frantically at her science station, trying to translate the information flowing from the predecessor systems. "Captain, I think they're trying to communicate with us. These data streams they're warnings." "About what?" Turner asked. "About what happens when you use reality-altering weapons," Carter replied, her voice growing increasingly alarmed as she decoded more of the data. "The predecessors didn't just vanish, Captain. They were consumed." The ancient records painted a terrifying picture. The predecessors had developed weapons similar to humanity's reality canon, using them to dominate their galaxy for thousands of years. But each use of the weapons had weakened the barriers between dimensions, eventually creating permanent rifts that allowed hostile entities to enter their reality. "The beings from other dimensions don't just destroy matter," Carter continued, her face pale as she absorbed the predecessor warnings. "They consume entire concepts, planets, stars, even the mathematical principles that hold reality together. The predecessors tried to fight them. But how do you battle enemies that can erase the very idea of your existence?" Turner felt a chill as he understood the implications. The entities waiting beyond the dimensional barriers weren't just another alien species. They were predators that fed on reality itself, viewing entire galaxies as meals to be consumed. "How long do we have?" Turner asked quietly. Carter consulted the predecessor data streams. "Based on our current usage of the reality canon, maybe 2 months before the first major dimensional breach. After that..." She trailed off, unable to voice the consequences. Sir, incoming transmission from the human colony at Titan Station, Communications Officer Dave Miller announced. Turner was surprised to receive any communication from human territory. Most colonies had been ordered to avoid contact with the Leviathan to prevent Council retaliation. The image of Colonial Governor Sarah Wells appeared on the screen, her expression desperate and pleading. "Captain Turner, thank God we found you. We need your help. A Zephyrian battle fleet is approaching our system, 12 heavy cruisers and a dreadnought. Our defenses won't last an hour." Turner felt the familiar weight of impossible choices settling on his shoulders. Titan Station housed over 2 million human civilians, including many families of his own crew members. But using the reality cannon to save them would bring the dimensional breach closer to reality. "Governor Wells, what about Council protection?" Turner asked. "Humanity was promised safety in exchange for our disarmament." Wells' bitter laugh carried over the communication channel. "The Council claims they can't respond in time. The Zephyrians are calling it a police action to eliminate terrorist sympathizers. Captain, you're our only hope." Turner closed the communication and looked around his bridge. Chief Ryan Cooper sat at the weapons station, his hands trembling as he realized what the captain was contemplating. Dr. Foster had joined them from the medical bay, her face showing the strain of treating crew members who were beginning to crack under the pressure. "Captain," Foster said quietly, "I have 17 crew members in psychiatric care. They're having nightmares about erasing people from existence. Some are refusing to participate in combat operations." "I understand their concerns," Turner replied, "but we can't abandon our people to alien slaughter." Commander Phillips stepped closer to Turner's chair. "Sir, with respect, we have to consider the bigger picture. If using the reality cannon brings those dimensional entities into our universe, we could be dooming trillions of beings to save 2 million. Turner stared at the predecessor data still flowing across his screen. The ancient aliens had faced the same choice and ultimately lost everything. But they had been alone in their decision. Turner had something they hadn't: a crew of humans who understood both the value of individual lives and the weight of cosmic responsibility. "Dr. Carter," Turner said finally, "is there any way to use the reality cannon selectively? Minimize the dimensional damage while still protecting our people?" Carter studied the predecessor technical specifications with renewed focus. "Maybe. If we modify the focusing crystals to create smaller, more precise tiers in space-time, we might be able to limit the damage, but it would require recalibrating the entire weapons system." "How long?" 8 hours minimum, and there's no guarantee it will work. Turner made his decision with the certainty that had carried him through years of impossible battles. "Do it. Chief Morrison, assist Dr. Carter with the modifications. Chief Cooper, prepare firing solutions for precision strikes only." As his crew began working on the reality cannon modifications, Turner received another priority message. This one came from Admiral Rodriguez, transmitted through encrypted channels despite his official disgrace. "Alex," the old admiral said, his voice filled with weariness. "I've been monitoring Council communications. They know about the dimensional threat, but they're more afraid of humanity having the reality cannon than they are of extra-dimensional predators. They'd rather risk galactic extinction than allow humans to remain armed." Turner absorbed this information without surprise. The established galactic powers had spent millennia maintaining their dominance through careful balance. Humanity's sudden rise threatened everything they had built, making them willing to risk universal destruction rather than accept change. "Sir," Nelson called from her tactical station, "long-range sensors are detecting the alien pursuit fleet. They found our location and are moving to intercept. Estimated arrival time is 6 hours. Turner looked at the countdown timer on his screen. 6 hours until the largest fleet in galactic history arrived to destroy them. 8 hours to modify their weapon system. And somewhere in between, 2 million human civilians would die unless he chose to risk the existence of every living being in the galaxy. The bridge fell silent except for the humming of the ship's systems and the quiet work of his crew modifying humanity's most dangerous weapon. Turner stared out at the ancient predecessor installations and wondered if his species was mature enough to wield power that could reshape reality itself. In a few hours, he would discover whether human wisdom could succeed where the predecessors had failed, or whether the USS Leviathan would become the catalyst for galactic extinction. The massive alien fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, over 500 ships from 12 different species, creating a deadly sphere around the predecessor installation. Captain Alex Turner watched them arrive on his tactical display, knowing that this would be the final confrontation between humanity and the established galactic order. "All ships are taking positions," Lieutenant Grace Nelson reported from her tactical station. "They're maintaining maximum range while their commanders coordinate the assault." Turner understood their caution. The alien fleet had learned to respect the reality cannon's devastating power, but they had also seen the dimensional damage it caused. They were caught between their fear of the weapon and their determination to prevent galactic extinction. Dr. Lisa Carter looked up from her science station, exhaustion written across her face. "Captain, the weapon modifications are complete. We can now fire precision bursts that should minimize dimensional damage. But I have to warn you, even reduced tears in space-time will add up quickly." Turner nodded grimly. They had bought themselves the ability to fight without immediately dooming the galaxy, but every shot would still bring the dimensional entities closer to breakthrough. It was a weapon that consumed the future to protect the present. "Sir, incoming transmission from the fleet," Communications Officer Dave Miller announced. The main screen filled with the familiar image of General Crix, but this time he was flanked by commanders from every major species in the galaxy. The sight of such unprecedented cooperation would have been inspiring under different circumstances. "Human Captain," Crix began, his scarred face showing both respect and determination. "We have monitored your study of the predecessor records. You now understand what your weapon will eventually unleash upon the galaxy." Turner stood to face the assembled alien commanders. "General, I understand the risks, but I also understand that my people are dying while your council debates politics. The Zephyrians are attacking Titan Station as we speak." "We are aware of the situation," replied the ethereal representative, its translucent form pulsing with agitated energy. "The Zephyrian action is unauthorized and will be dealt with through proper channels." 2 million civilians don't have time for proper channels, Turner shot back. "You want us to trust alien promises while our people are being slaughtered." The biomechanical swarm's collective voice added its harmonic tones to the discussion. "Human Turner, we acknowledge the injustice of the current situation. But the survival of all galactic civilization outweighs the immediate fate of any single world." Turner felt anger rising in his chest, but he forced himself to remain calm. These beings genuinely believed they were making the right choice, weighing the certain death of millions against the potential extinction of trillions. "There has to be another way," Turner said finally. "We've modified the reality canon to minimize dimensional damage. Give us the chance to save our people without dooming the galaxy." Dr. Velix of the Scientific Coalition leaned forward, her 4 arms gesturing emphatically. Captain Turner, our calculations show that even reduced dimensional tiers will eventually create breaches. You may slow the process, but you cannot stop it. Turner was about to respond when Chief Morrison's voice cut across the bridge. Captain, I'm detecting massive energy fluctuations from the predecessor installation. Something's happening. The ancient alien structures began glowing with increasing intensity, their geometric forms shifting and realigning in patterns that hurt to watch. Energy discharges arced between the installations, creating a light show that outshone nearby stars. Sir, Carter called out, her voice filled with awe and terror. The predecessors left us more than just warnings. They left us a solution. Turner moved to her station and studied the data streaming from the ancient machines. The predecessors had built a device capable of sealing dimensional rifts permanently, powered by the same energy source that made reality altering. Weapons possible. It's a choice, Carter explained, her voice barely above a whisper. We can use the reality cannon one final time to power their dimensional seal. It would close all the rifts we've created and prevent future breaches, but what? Turner asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. The process would destroy the Leviathan and everyone aboard it. The ship's quantum fusion cores would need to be overloaded in a controlled implosion. Someone would have to manually trigger the sequence from inside the reactor core. Turner felt the weight of ultimate decision settling on his shoulders. He could save his people at Titan Station and permanently seal the dimensional rifts, but it would cost the lives of his crew and the destruction of humanity's greatest achievement. He looked around his bridge at the faces of people who had followed him through impossible battles. Commander Kate Phillips, who had never faltered in her support. Chief Ryan Cooper, who had fired weapons that erased ships from existence. Dr. Carter, who had unlocked the secrets of reality itself. Captain, Phillips said quietly, understanding the choice before them. It's what we signed up for, protecting humanity, no matter the cost. Turner opened a communication channel to address his entire crew. All hands, this is the captain. We have discovered a way to save both our people and the galaxy, but it requires the ultimate sacrifice from all of us. I will not order anyone to die. This has to be a choice each of you makes freely. The response came back immediately from every department of the ship. 500 voices united in determination, accepting death to save both their species and their enemies. Turner felt pride mixed with heartbreak as he realized that his crew embodied the best of humanity, the willingness to sacrifice everything for others. Dr. Carter, Turner said formally, will you do the honors? Carter stood slowly, her face pale but resolute. It should be me, Captain. I created this weapon. I should be the one to end it. Turner nodded with deep respect. Chief Morrison, prepare the quantum fusion cores for controlled overload. All hands, prepare for final combat operations. The USS Leviathan moved away from the predecessor installation and set course for Titan Station at maximum speed. The alien fleet followed at a distance, their commanders unsure whether to stop the human ship or allow it to complete its final mission. When they arrived at Titan Station, Turner saw the devastation the Zephyrian fleet had wrought. The orbital defense platforms were smoking ruins, and fires burned across the colony's surface. The enemy ships continued their bombardment, unaware that they had just minutes left to exist. Target the Zephyrian fleet, Turner ordered. All weapons, prepare for final engagement. The reality cannon fired 6 times in rapid succession, each shot precisely calibrated to minimize dimensional damage while maximizing destruction. The Zephyrian ships simply ceased to exist, erased from reality by weapons that violated the fundamental laws of physics. As the last enemy vessel disappeared, Carter made her way to the engineering deck. The quantum fusion cores were already overloading, their containment fields fluctuating as unimaginable energies prepared to tear a hole in space itself. "Dr. Carter is in position," Morrison reported, his voice steady despite the tears in his eyes. Turner opened a final communication to the alien fleet. "General Crix, this is Captain Turner. We're about to seal the dimensional rifts permanently. Tell the galaxy that humanity chose to save everyone, even those who hunted us." The controlled implosion began as Carter manually triggered the final sequence. The Leviathan's hull began to collapse inward as space-time twisted around the dying ship. The energy released was channeled through the predecessor device, creating a wave that sealed every dimensional rift in the galaxy. Turner felt the ship disintegrating around him as reality rewrote itself one final time. His last thought was of the human colonies that would now be safe, protected by the sacrifice of the crew that had dared to challenge the galaxy's greatest powers. The USS Leviathan vanished in a flash of light that was visible across half the galaxy. Where the ship had been, space itself seemed cleaner, as if an infection had been burned away by purifying fire. General Crix stood on his command bridge, watching, the space where the human ship had made its final stand. Around him, his crew worked in respectful silence, understanding that they had witnessed something unprecedented in galactic history. "Communications," Crix said finally, "open a channel to the Galactic Council." When the assembled alien leaders appeared on his screen, Crix spoke with the formal tone reserved for the most solemn occasions. "The human vessel USS Leviathan has been destroyed. All dimensional rifts have been permanently sealed. The threat to galactic stability has ended." "What of the reality canon technology?" asked the ethereal representative. "Erased along with the ship," Crix replied. "The humans made sure of that." The months that followed brought unprecedented change to galactic civilization. The Zephyrian Empire was dissolved by council decree, its former territories placed under international protection. The human colonies were granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with guarantees of protection that were enforced by former enemies. Admiral Rodriguez, restored to command, oversaw the construction of new human warships built to council. Specifications: they were powerful vessels, but limited by strict treaties that prevented the development of reality-altering weapons. A memorial was erected in Earth orbit to honor the CR.